All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're getting under the hood of something absolutely incredible, a true modern marvel of automotive engineering. We are dissecting the 2026 Aston Martin Valhalla. If you're someone who loves the intersection of extreme, track-level performance and cutting-edge hybrid technology, well, you are in the perfect place. Let's break down exactly what makes this machine tick and why it's kind of shifting our entire paradigm of what a hypercar can actually be.
So, I want you to think about something. What actually happens when Formula One engineering meets the open road? That's the foundational question Aston Martin set out to answer here. I mean, we're so used to this strict dividing line, right? You've got your uncompromising, track-only F1 monsters on one side, and then cars you can actually drive to the grocery store on the other. Well, the Valhalla? It completely blurs that line.
What we end up with is the ultimate road-ready hypercar. As a mid-engine plug-in hybrid, or PHEV, it basically sits as the slightly more accessible sibling to the utterly wild track-focused Valkyrie. And its absolute core is a Formula One-inspired carbon fiber monocoque. They didn't just borrow the racing aesthetics here, guys. They utilized foundational F1 chassis architecture to literally bridge the gap between sheer track dominance and street drivability.
Which brings us to F1 Power Hybrid Brain. The powertrain specs on this thing are literally jaw-dropping. The Valhalla marries a bespoke Mercedes-AMG 4.0-liter twin-turbocharged flat-plane crank V8, which, by the way, is designed for incredibly high revs with 3 independent electric motors. You've got 2 sitting on the front axle and 1 integrated right into the transmission.
Just let this number sink in for a second. 1,079. When you combine that screaming gas-powered V8 with the triple electric motors, you get a peak combined output of 1,079 horsepower. Oh, and that's backed up by 811 pound-feet of torque. We are talking about sheer, unrelenting force available at the literal tap of a pedal.
So, what does all that muscle actually translate to on the tarmac? 2.5 seconds. That is the blistering time it takes to rocket from 0 to 62 miles per hour. It leverages the instant torque of the electric motors right off the line, and then seamlessly hands things off to the massive top-end pull of the V8. It's like a rocket ship.
And the crazy thing is, it doesn't stop pulling until it hits 217, a staggering top speed of 217 miles per hour. Once this thing is launched, the advanced aerodynamics and pure mechanical horsepower push it straight into the absolute upper echelon of top-speed hypercars.
Now, this perfectly illustrates the wild duality of the Valhalla. On one hand, you've got a screaming twin-turbo V8 designed to absolutely tear up a racing circuit. But on the other, a completely silent EV-only mode. Aston Martin actually engineered this hypercar to cruise silently for about 9 miles, at speeds up to 80 miles per hour, running entirely on battery power. So you can wake up the entire neighborhood out on the track and then sneak quietly back into your driveway at night. It's the best of both worlds.
Managing all this chaos is an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. But here is an absolute flex from the engineering team. It features an E-reverse function. Instead of adding the heavy mechanical gears required for a traditional reverse, Aston Martin simply uses those front electric motors to spin backward. Honestly, it's just an incredibly clever way to shave off unnecessary weight and maximize performance.
But hey, power is pretty much useless if you can't keep the car on the ground, right? So let's get into controlling the wind. Let's take a look at the anatomy of the chassis and how Aston Martin ensures the Valhalla stays glued to the tarmac.
The mechanical balance going on here is just extraordinary. The Valhalla generates over 600 kilograms of downforce at 150 miles per hour. That is literal race car territory, guys. And thanks to that carbon fiber tub we talked about, they're targeting a dry weight of just 1,550 kilograms. To stop all that momentum, you've got massive 410mm front carbon ceramic brakes running on a highly advanced F1-style brake-by-wire system.
Building on that crazy foundation, we've got an advanced chassis and aero setup. It uses a push-rod front suspension, which is a true F1 hallmark that moves bulky components inboard to give you much better aerodynamics. It pairs dynamically with Bilstein adaptive dampers, but the real magic, the real showstopper, is the active aero. There's a dynamic front wing and a hydraulically actuated rear wing that literally doubles as an air brake. Every surface dynamically shifts to manipulate the air, exactly like a dedicated track car.
All right, after all that talk of violent acceleration and face-melting downforce, let's take a breath and slow things down. Welcome to a civilized cockpit. Because honestly, despite its track weapon DNA, the inside of the Valhalla is surprisingly focused on driver comfort. Believe it or not, it is far from a bare metal roll cage.
Inside, you're greeted with this pared-back, super driver-centric design. You're sitting low in a very F1-style position. Yet, it integrates modern daily comforts completely seamlessly. You've got a 12.3-inch central touchscreen, a 10.25-inch digital driver display, full connectivity with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and, get this, dual-zone climate control. It's a stark reminder that this hypercar is genuinely meant to be driven and enjoyed on real roads. But here is, for sure, the most unexpected part: the safety aids. Sensible commuter technology. I mean, you don't normally expect to find automatic emergency braking, active cruise control, and blind spot monitoring in a 1,000-horsepower track weapon. It's kind of a hilarious juxtaposition, honestly. You've got enough downforce to practically drive upside down in a tunnel, but you also have blind spot monitoring so you don't ding the paint at the grocery store. Of course, bridging the gap between an F1 track monster and a luxury daily driver doesn't exactly come cheap. That brings us to the price of exclusivity. Let's talk about the extreme cost and the strict rarity that define the Valhalla ownership experience. Yup, $1 million. The estimated starting MSRP sits somewhere between $800,000 and a cool $1 million. And, as with pretty much all hypercars in this echelon, once you add in local taxes, destination fees, and the inevitable bespoke custom configurations, well, that final price tag is going to be pushed significantly higher.
But you know what? Money alone actually isn't enough to guarantee you get one. $999. That is the strict global production limit. Aston Martin is capping total production at just 999 units worldwide, so they're ensuring this remains an incredibly rare sight on the road and an absolutely coveted prize for collectors.
So that leaves us with a pretty provocative question to chew on. With over 1,000 horsepower and a dedicated EV mode, is the era of the pure gas hypercar officially over? The Valhalla strongly suggests that electrification isn't just about fuel efficiency anymore. It's about unlocking insane levels of performance and duality that traditional combustion engines just can't pull off on their own. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this deep dive helped you grasp the fascinating mechanics and the totally future-facing engineering behind the Aston Martin Valhalla. Catch you next time.